Thank you, President. And I rise with some disappointment and sadness to speak to this bill. It is rushed. I don't feel that the report is actually as compelling as other reports that we have seen when we have been asked to sack a elected government, to sack 11 elected representatives. In fact, the report goes to great lengths to tell us that all 11 representatives did not act badly, did not bring the council into disrepute. In fact, it was just a few. The monitor doesn't go to name who they were, but he certainly does not say that all 11 councillors acted so poorly that they should be sacked, and the ever-growing constituency of Whittlesea, the 250,000 people, should be without elected representatives for 4.5 years. I think this is entirely, it's unreasonable. And as Dr. Ratnam did outline the timeline of this, I'm at a loss as to why the timeline was rushed. The monitor, yes, 2 weeks before Christmas, 2 days after a young female was elected as mayor, or a few days after a young female was elected as mayor and a young female was appointed deputy mayor, and with such enthusiasm and optimism, and it was a real delight to spend time with those women. And I was really looking forward to spending time with them, getting to know them more. And they had a deep aspirations for their community, which I shared. But here we have a report from a monitor who was asked to spend 6 months looking at this council, to consider the appointment and oversight of a CEO, to advise and provide assistance and support to the council in relation to the council's governance and practice, with specific regards to matters raised in Clause 1 and 2, which was the appointment of the CEO, and to monitor any other issues identified by the municipal monitor which could impact on the integrity of the council decision-making and the council's ability to provide good governance. Now, in that 19 pages that he delivered 2 weeks early, which was supposed to be an interim report, it was delivered 2 weeks early. They've decided not to complete the full 6 months of monitoring, which, when we had the most recent case of sacking a council, Casey Council, where there was absolute criminal activity being alleged in that council. In fact, I think it's quite clear that there has been criminal activity. That was not the case in this council. There was also also reports, and the monitor actually confirms this, that poor behaviour in this council had been going for years, if not decades. But the monitor comes back 2 weeks early with a 19-page report, and I'm including the page that had the terms of reference and the contents, 19-page report to say that this council must urgently be sacked. There is nothing we can do to help this council. Its governance is poor, and yes, there are some examples, but there are no specific examples. In fact, it would appear in my reading, and I have had the opportunity to read it a couple of times, even though we have only been given, we received this document yesterday. They had very poor social media skills, and this continues. And that they could benefit from a best practice guide. I think we all could benefit from a good practice guide on how to use social media. They appear to have some poor social skills, and they didn't seem to be able to get along with others. They fought amongst themselves. I don't know if anybody's watched us on television, but I think we could be accused of the same. There was poor relationships with staff, Now that I did find concerning, because the health and safety of the staff, and I have spent a lot of time with the Whittlesea staff. I have regular visits and regular meetings with Whittlesea, and I have found those staff passionate. And in fact, it was only a couple of weeks ago that Mr Ondaatje and I were in Whittlesea for a homelessness inquiry, that we had great assistance from the Whittlesea Council in coordinating. They provided us with excellent information, and they have always done that. So we're talking about poor social media, poor social skills and poor relationships with staff, that somehow the Monitor did mention once on page 13 that he made some suggestions on how they could get along better, and that the Mayor tried that, but it didn't last long. I certainly think we could have tried a bit harder. And we paid the Monitor $50,000. We asked the Monitor to spend 6 months there to see how he could improve things. This is not a council that is filled with corruption. This is not a council that is facing criminal charges. This is a council that has been accused of bad behaviour towards each other and bad behaviour towards staff. So, as the Minister states in his second reading speech, dismissing a council by Parliament is the most extreme intervention by the state and is only undertaken in the most serious cases of governance failure. I can't find that in this report. I cannot find the extreme nature here, and I cannot find any reason why we would prevent the ever-growing city of Whittlesea to be without a local governance, to be without a local elected representatives for 4.5 years. So I'm very disappointed. I don't feel that there was any urgency to this. It wasn't as if someone was about to, rob a bank, or there was any illegality here. So what was the urgency? The report relies heavily on 2 other reports that we have not been able to see. We've not received copies of those reports. It relied very heavily on those. I don't think it does provide a compelling case for dismissing a council, and it particularly does not provide a compelling case for dismissing a council within 24 hours of receiving the report being tabled in this Parliament. I, like Mr Quilty, like Dr Ratnam, would have liked more time to have investigated this, would have liked to have more time to maybe even read the reports that this report relies on, to get a greater understanding of this. I do think that there would have been better ways to have handled this. I do think that this has been rushed, and I fear that if this is how we're going to continue, we did this with Casey Council as well. What, is Mornington next? Cardinia? I don't know, but every Wednesday afternoon are we going to spend an hour in Saka Council? I'm disappointed with this. I look forward, and I'm pleased, because it's at one stage the government was not going to provide much time for debate or for committee. So I'm pleased that we will be able to ask some questions of the Minister. And the Minister's office, I thank the Minister's office, because they have been forthcoming with information in late hours of the night last night when we were trying to prepare for today. So I thank the Minister's office for that. I will hold my judgment on this bill until after the committee process.